Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're back working on the team associated B7. Now, if you haven't seen the previous videos on this, where I did an unboxing video and I did a detailed build video of this car, I'll put a link up here. Go check that out, as you've kind of come right into the middle of this kind of series. You caught up? Excellent. Right, in this episode, well, the plan is we've got to fit a load more upgrades. Yeah, don't do what I do. Now, I haven't even run this car yet and I couldn't help myself. I went online and I bought a load of new upgrades for it. Yes, I know you shouldn't do this. So, hey, well, I'm trying to make content as well. So that's my justifications for it. But you don't need to get all these upgrades for it before you've taken it out and run it. And I've already fitted a load of beautiful wheel speed upgrades already in the previous video. So, yeah, you feel free to flame me in the comments of why you shouldn't do this. But there we go. So in this episode, the plan is we've got to fix a few of my mistakes, like the diff oil was wrong. Also, what else did I do wrong? Anyway, I can't remember. I'm sure I remember. And fit all these new upgrades. Then at the end of this video, we're going to take it for a shakedown run and see how it performs. Also, I painted up the body since the last video. I'm expecting a pro painted body for it, but it hasn't arrived yet. So I wanted to paint up something. So obviously I didn't want to hold up this video. So I painted up the body. Now I went pretty straightforward. I just did it white. And then I fitted some blingy decals just to make it stand out. When I take it to the track and drive it around and I film it, having something that pops a bit more. And being that I had my new funky disco disc rims, I thought I would go for more of like a purpley, bright white kind of fun body. So that's what I've done. Anyway, right. I think that pretty much covers everything of what you're going to see in this video. So if that interests you, well, you better stay tuned. Right, I'm just going to go over the upgrades that I've got and try and justify my thinking. So the first thing was the servo mount to change from the plastic one. Now I run a reef servo. This is the B6.4 servo mount. And the reason I went with this is I know it definitely works with my reef servo. Whereas the kit one that comes with it, I had to modify it. Then I decided to get a pinion, as a lot of people are saying that you need to go up higher on your pinion size. Also, someone recommended changing out the slipper pads to this version because apparently it's not as grabby, it's more consistent. So I thought I'd give them a try. Ceramic bearings, just to smooth things out. Then I thought I'd push the boat out a little bit and get some titanium turnbuckles. Really, you're losing some weight from higher up. Now, I did get some diff pins. As I'm running two planetary gears, I was using the plastic one that came in the kit. So that's a lot of pressure, so I swapped to the metal ones. Then I really pushed the boat out, as I've never tried these before on my B6.4. These are the upgraded, super fancy, shock smooth housing things. Turns out I had an issue with these that I'll talk about later. But that was a big investment. Then totally for bling reasons, I decided to go with these. I went with the HRC ones, as that's what I'm going to be running because I'm running on a carpet track. You don't really need those, and they are quite expensive for what they are. Now, because my kit is a very early one, I was a bit worried about the rear gearbox diff housing not lining up, and mine was a little bit not happy with it. So I thought instead of chewing up my new gears, I thought I would swap out to the carbon composite one, and hopefully that would fix the problem. At the same time, I decided to order the carbon side rails. That should stiffen up the chassis. And then I thought, as I'm digging so deep into the diff, I thought I would get the aluminium height inserts because, well, why wouldn't you? Such an idiot. Then I also had a few more ceramic bearings to go in the car. And the last thing I think was the titanium front axles. A little bit stronger, apparently a little bit lighter. No, they're not. They're actually heavier. And then I got the standard servo horn, as the servo horn that I fitted doesn't really work. Also, I wanted to add a little bit more weight over the nose, so I picked up the 33 gram version. And that's my logical reasoning to spend the best part of £200+. Oh yeah, I also forgot I bought the titanium shaft screw, the one that goes through the slipper. Yeah, because everybody needs one of those. Right, let's get all these upgrades fitted. Now, the strategy that tends to work best for me is to focus in one area, think about the upgrades and the logical path of installation. There's no point jumping from the front to the back and then going back and undoing things you've already done. So kind of taking a few minutes to work out the order that you're going to do the install of the new parts, and that way you dismantle the car to make sure you put all the upgrades in a relatively logical order so that you're not taking things apart that you've already put together. So the first thing's nice and easy was the rear uprights. Yeah, look at that, pure bling, gorgeous. Yeah, you don't need those. Right, next we need to get right in to remove the diff housing. So to do that, we've got to take all the rear tower off, all the motor mount and everything. So doing it in a kind of logical order. Now, in the kit that comes for the carbon diff housing is also the carbon tower mount, so I'm changing that as well, as obviously I've got it. So we're going to take the diff out, put that to one side. We'll come back to upgrading the diff in a bit. Then we need to remove the rear wheel speed upgrades that I fitted in the last video, put them to one side. I'm going to change the pills out as well. I'm going to put neutral center in the C and D. Blocks from wheel speed have a 1 degree, so I'm going to start pretty neutral and see how we get on from that. Right, so we got most of the work done, so we can actually open up the housing and then remove the gears. Then it's a simple case of getting the new carbon one and repeating the process of putting it all back together again. Now, hopefully with the new carbon housing and the wheel speed gears, this is going to be quite a tough and reliable driveline. So we just simply moved everything over. I did swap out some of the bearings to ceramic, and then we just put the bolts back in and seal it all back up again. Now we can turn our attention to the diff. Now there's a few things I'm going to do here. I'm going to change these plastic diff locators, whatever you call them, change those ones out for alloy. Going to change the bearings out for ceramic as well, and then we're going to change out the center planetary spline as well as change the oil over. So my logic is, if you're going to dig in this deep, you might as well do the upgrades all at one go. And that's how I justify spending the money. So I tried to get 100,000 oil, but it seemed to be out of stock at the moment, so I picked up some 80. I'll see how I get on with this. I can always go in and change the oil later, next time I service the diff out. The carbon diff housing upgrade comes in two parts. You've got the main housing itself, and then you've got the top section that goes over the top of the diff that also is where the tower bolts to. So I swapped that one out as well. It takes a little bit of jiggling to line it all up, and then you can just put the screws in and tighten it all down. There you go, it's all back together again, and I'm happy to report it went together fine. Everything seems to line up correctly. But before I put the diff back into the car, I'm going to put in the extra plate weight. Also, I'm going to change the carbon side rails, but I forgot how many actual screws hold the side rails in place, so it's a bit of a mammoth task. Well, now the carbon rails are in, I can turn my attentions to the servo. I need to remove that and change over the servo horn, and then replace the servo mount with the new snazzy carbon alloy one. And that's easy enough to do, as there's only 2 screws in the top and then the 2 that go through the back of the chassis. Now we've done that, we can turn our attentions to putting the whole rear end back on the car, and it's only like 8 screws through the bottom. One thing I like to do is put the brushless sensor wire underneath in the channel under the battery. So I use some of that silver tape, and it kind of makes it a little bit less messy. Next is a job that I haven't really been looking forward to, and that's changing out all the turnbuckles for the titanium ones. Now this is mind-numbingly boring and one thing I really just don't like doing. But I have all the measurements from the ones on the car, so I guess that's something, I suppose. But we'll push right through this, and then we'll turn our attention to something a little bit more interesting, and that's changing out the shock housing. Now, how good can these really be versus the cost that you're going to spend? So let's find out. I wanted to do this on my B6.4, but I just couldn't really justify the costs. Now, unfortunately, when I was building these, I was just moving everything over, but you actually get the pistons in the pack. And one of them was damaged in manufacture. it looks like the drill bit or the tap that goes into the top of the piston that you see that I'm doing now that accepts the screw had the tool snapped off in it. So I need to contact CML or AE and say, hey, I need another one of those. I'm not sure, bit of a strange one. Luckily the kit pistons are the same, pretty much the same weight, same length and same size, diameters, so I just left one, so I've got one gold one for now. Don't think it's going to give me too much of a problem, but I'll have to chase down a replacement. So that was a little bit disappointing when you're spending this kind of money. Right, with everything moved over, the last thing we're going to do is get the shocks back on the car, see how it feels. Now, I must admit, that took way longer than expected. A good few hours solid work. But hopefully, I haven't made any major mistakes and the car's going to run reasonably well for its first outing. So that took way longer than expected, but I managed to get it done in time for us to take it out and give it a bit of a shakedown. Must admit, bit disappointed in the actual piston that came with the upgraded shock housing. Being that you're paying real high money for those, to have a drill bit or machine bit stuck in the end of it means I can't use it. Luckily, I can still run the car because I have my kit ones, so I'll have to phone them up, see if I can get a replacement. Whether they'll want that back or not, I don't know. I mean, mistakes happen, but that's just part and parcel of it, I guess. In this raffle, you have the opportunity to win one of these. And I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about these. Yep, a lot of people have been asking me, could I do a raffle that involves a brand new kit that I don't build? So that's what this raffle is. So if you win this raffle, you have the opportunity to choose one of these two beautiful Cure Show 60th anniversary kits. Comes with free worldwide shipping included in the price of your ticket. Well, you better get a move on. This one is not going to be around for very long. Right, the first thing we're going to do is take it for a shakedown run. Now, as I've changed everything, and also the car's been built pretty much twice now, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go. You guesstimate where you want to start. I have a pro setup sheet which I've used, but then also I've seen a few other people making comments on carpet, what to change, so we'll just have to wait and see. My guesstimation will be, usually with a two-wheel drive buggy, especially at the beginning, you're just chasing front end, but hey, we'll just have to find out. Hopefully nothing falls off, because I've changed so much. Sometimes you think you might make a silly mistake, leave a nut undone, and then something drastic happens, but we just don't know. So let's take it out for its first shakedown. I'm going to show you just a little bit of how it's running, and then I'll come back, explain what I found, and then what I've changed, and then we'll go through it to see if we can dial the car in over the evening. So let's see how we got on round one. Well, qualifying one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on reviewing the footage, it looks a lot better than it feels, because I was really unhappy with it. It just felt like I'm waiting for so long for the car to turn in, but when you look at it here, it actually looks reasonably okay. The car's lovely and smooth, and I was happy with that aspect, but it just felt so slow. And yeah, but there we go. It's funny how when I review my driving footage, how different it looks sometimes to how it feels at the point you're actually driving. Right, so that was round one, and yes, no front end whatsoever. It was just drifting out. As I was turning into a tight corner, I was just waiting and waiting and then applying the power. Kind of thought that's what I was going to expect, but maybe not to this degree. It was nowhere. So a few more changes I'm going to make at the front. We're going to change the position of the shocks. I'm going to remove the anti-roll bar and see how that gets on. So let's go back and see, did it actually improve anything, or is it the same? 4, 3, 1. Oh, sorry. I thought I was supposed to. So off the back, doesn't feel that much different. Didn't make it worse, but I'm still struggling to get it to turn in. There's lots of waiting on the throttle, especially around some of the really tight bits up here at the corner. So I think we've still got a way to go. So that didn't really go to plan. It didn't really change much. Still had the same issues, fractionally, marginally better, but they could be just down to me getting used to the car. So in this one, what I'm going to do after that run is I'm going to change the caster blocks. The caster blocks were 2.5. I've gone to a 5. Also, I brought the shocks in a fraction, so hopefully that's going to help as well. So let's take it back out and give it a run and see, hopefully, if the front end's got a little bit sharper. So I wasn't holding out much hope on this one, but I'm happy to report that that change made a big difference. I think I've got an extra 20% on the front end, and it feels a lot more normal to what I'm used to. And it turns in, still not perfect, there's still more to do with the front end, but it was a real relief that I'd actually made the car take a big step forward and improved how it handles and how it feels. So yeah, now being that this car has been dismantled twice and it's never been run, not even down the street, this is its first outing, I'm kind of happy where we are. There's still work in progress. So I'm happy to report that was much better, a lot sharper at the front, still not where I want it to be, but it was a big 20% step in the right direction. So there's still more work to be done with the front of the car. One thing I'm really chuffed is the suspension feels nice. It jumps, it comes down nicely, it's not chassis slapping, and it's feeling pretty smooth. So that side, really happy with it. So it's just the front that needs a little bit more work. Now, as I was packing up to come home, one thing that dawned on me, and I was talking to somebody who knows way more about racing buggies than me, who happened to be running the same front tires, but they weren't running inserts, and I was. So as you can see, I've now changed the front wheels. So I had another set and I've taken out the insert. So I'm now running without front inserts. Hopefully that's going to give me a little bit more bite on the front. Also, there's a few other little upgrades on the front to change to try and dial it in. But for the first run out, considering how much I've changed, really happy with it. It does feel lovely and smooth. The diff, and I'm quite happy with it at the moment. I'm not sure whether I'm going to up the oil, go to 100,000 or maybe a little bit over. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm still waiting for the short chassis. When the B6.4 short chassis arrived and I changed it, it did make a massive step forward on that track. So whenever AE decide to get round to supplying them to the UK again, I think mine's been on order for now 2 months plus. I'm going to have to dismantle it all again and swap it over, but hopefully that's going to give me a little bit more rotation as well. So stay tuned for the next episode. Hopefully we should be able to take this another step forward. Also, I'm going to spend the money and upgrade the ESC and motor in this one to the Corsa Tech like I have in my other race buggies. I just really like the way it delivers. It's expensive but high quality, and I just feel like I get so much more control and oomph out of it versus what I'm running in this. So in the next episode, we're going to be spending a load more money and upgrading it, but hopefully bringing down those lap times. Thanks very much. See you on the next one. Bye bye.